Hello, it's Sandy, and I am back again with another double slider using Trinity Stamps and Sassy's LLC Emergency Card Die Set number 3 double slider and the new stamp set We've Come for Cake. This time I am stepping it up just a notch. So it is a double slider plus the little aliens are now taking a couple of cows and a chunk of cake up into their spaceship. This one was so fun, a little tricky, but man, am I happy with the way it turned out. Anyway, give me a thumbs up if you like this video. You can subscribe if you want to be notified of future videos. You can follow me on Instagram at Sandy Cogdill or on my blog, www.sandycogdilldesigns.com. Let's get started on this fun little card. For the sake of time in this video, I'm not going to show you me coloring these little images. I did color them with Copic markers, and I'll give you the colors. I am using for the grain field YR23, YR24, Y26, and YR27. The grassy area next to that is YG07, G14, G05. The barn is R14, R29, E55, E57, and Y19. The cows are E50, E51, E55, E57, R11, R21. The moon and flying saucer are Y02, Y08, and Y19. Other colors on the flying saucers are B000, B00, B01, B02, B04, and B05. The purple is V04, V15, and V17. My aliens are YG13, YG05. The grays C2, C4, C6. And the beam is 620, 640, YG11, and YG5. I know it's a lot of colors, but I think I needed every single one of them. I decided to go with a black background for this particular card this time rather than one of the more colorful ones I've been using. I'm going to use Distress Oxide inks in Lost Shadow, Hickory Smoke, and Black Soot. I think if I were to do this background again, I wouldn't even bother with the Lost Shadow because I kind of lost the shadow as I was ink blending it. So this is more of a blend between Hickory Smoke and Black Soot. I'm just going to lay those on my card and then just blend them so that they kind of meld together. I don't know that the picture really shows the two darker colors of gray. I know it doesn't show the light one, but there are two on there. I'm going to spritz a little bit of water on this background and then just kind of towel it off. I think that helps give it more of a galaxy type feel. And then I'm going to bring it to my little spatter box. I'm going to water down some white acrylic paint, and then I'm just going to flick it onto my background. I really need to use a spatter box because I am so incredibly messy with this. I will get ink or paint all over everything unless I use this. I don't know where I got it, but I got it probably 15 years ago, and I've been using it ever since. Since this background was going to be so dark, I did not want the white rim around my die cuts to show on the card. However, as I was looking back at some of my pictures, I missed a few of the planets. So I did go back in and color those. I just don't have pictures of it. Anyway, I'm going to take a Copic marker and I'm going to go around all of my die cuts and color in that white area. I can usually find some Copic marker that blends in well with the background. This is just much easier than trying to stamp it on the background and get the interactive mechanism lined up easily. I think if I were doing this just as a background, not an interactive card, I probably would have just stamped them directly on it and then masked them off. Anyway, this is a good and simple solution to get rid of that white outside edge. For this card, I did beef up those pop-out tabs a little bit by putting another piece of cardstock behind it. So I've used a piece of green. I kind of ink blended the edges just to kind of give them a little bit of dimension and that galaxy look. And then on the top one, I used the notch die to cut out that opening. And then I heat embossed the word pull with white embossing powder on the black cardstock. I'll go ahead and get those glued together. I do find that that does make that, the 2 layers makes it just a little bit more beefy and a little bit more durable. I thought it would be really, really cute to have the cake and a cow being sucked up into the flying saucer. And if you're going to have one cow, you may as well have 2. So I colored a couple of cows and a cake, and I will just arrange those together. They will be applied to the little tab that's going to pull them up into the spaceship. And next I'll adhere my little farm scene to the bottom of that card. I'm going to temporarily adhere that light beam to my card because I'm not quite sure where I want it to be yet. I do know that I will be using the second to the smallest skinny piece that cuts open that slit for the mechanism to move up and down. But I'm not sure how that is going to work out with my little stack of cows. So I'm just going to kind of fiddle around with that until I find really the place where I want it to be. Then I'm going to use, it's actually a quilting ruler to help me get that lined up straight. I want it in the center of the card, and I definitely want it to be straight up and down. That's just going to help everything move a little bit better. So once I get that figured out, I'll go ahead and tape that down and run it through my die cutting machine. Now we're going to start putting together the mechanism. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use that little H piece that the die cuts out. I'm taking a piece of plastic, and I've actually scrapped that off of a package that Stampin' a Die Set came in. Now I've turned into some crazy plastic hoarding woman because you never know how many of those pieces I'm going to need. Anyway, I've cut that to just a smidgen under 2¼ inches. I'm not too worried about the length of that piece. I just want it long enough to wrap around that center section of the, what I call the H piece. I'm going to place a little bit of some strong double-sided adhesive tape across the top of that plastic piece. Then I'm going to wrap the plastic around the H and adhere the other end to that tape that I just put on. It's just making a loop. Then I'm going to put another piece of the adhesive tape at the top where I had just connected the two pieces. And then I'm going to flip it over and put another piece of the adhesive tape at the bottom of the H. I am being careful on each one of these tape applications to make sure that my tape is not extending over the edges of my plastic. If it does, it's going to wind up making your plastic stick to that cardstock, and then your mechanism isn't going to move. In the die set, there is a die that cuts out this white strip of paper. On the white strip of paper, there are 4 embossed lines. So the two that are on the farthest of the outside, you're going to fold to the outside. And the two that are closer into the middle, you're going to fold into it. Then you're going to put a little bit of glue there, glue those 2 inside tabs down, and then leave the 2 outside tabs up. I also kind of curl those around. I think I used a double ball stylus just to get them rounded so that they're not flat. That's going to help that mechanism move up and down without your piece getting caught on it. So I got a little bit ahead of my skis here and actually put the foam tape on the one side of my H piece and, to make matters worse, peeled off the protective tape. Anyway, now I need to adhere my 2 pull tab pieces. So the one that's going to pop out of the bottom is going to be adhered to the top of the H with the right side facing forward. And then the other piece is going to be applied to the other side of the H with the right side forward, but at the bottom of the H, if that makes any sense. That way, the bottom and the top move apart from each other when the tab is pulled. Now I'm going to apply some double-sided adhesive tape to that tab that slides up and down in the slit on the front of that card. All right, now I'm going to start to have a little bit of a struggle session. So I'm going to feed that tab. I got ahead of my skis and I placed that tab piece that's supposed to move up and down on the bottom on the bottom slider, which obviously isn't going to work because it's not going to allow that card to slide up and down. So I'm going to insert that piece back through the slits and adhere it to the top piece, the one that's got the pull at the top. I'm going to adhere it to the bottom of that. Once I get that pressed down, then that mechanism is going to slide freely up and down. I don't know what I was thinking by putting it on that back piece, but yeah, it didn't work. So now that I've got that in the right place, I can place my little cows and my cake on that mechanism that's sliding up and down with some double-sided adhesive tape. I left this thing in here so that you could see what happens if you don't get that tab on the right on the right tab, because things just won't work. Since we have 2 layers of foam tape on that H piece, we need to build up the rest of that card front with 2 layers of foam tape also. So I'm going to go ahead and apply my foam tape to the rest of the card, and I'm always making sure that my foam tape is not going to hinder the movement of those 2 pull tabs. You want them to move freely up and down. Once I get the 2 layers on, then I will go ahead and adhere it to a card base. I made my card base out of black cardstock, cut to 8.5 by 5.5, and then scored at 4.25. I'm going to peel off the protective tape on the card front and adhere it to my card. Okay, now I'm going to be just a wee bit ridiculous and fussy. I didn't like having the white foam tape showing on in between the 2 layers of my card, so I went back with a Copic marker and I colored in all of that white tape just to make it look not quite so messy. I know it's kind of fussy, but I think it made a difference on the card. I struggled a little bit on the placement of my flying saucer. If I had it too low, then my little cows and cake were covering up too much of the flying saucer, and that looked kind of weird. And then if I had it too high, then I had a gap in between where the flying saucer was and where the light beam started. After all kinds of debate, I decided that I would go ahead and just have that gap. I liked that better than the cows covering the flying saucer, so that's what I went with. And now we're going to go ahead and finish this card. For the little tabs that popped up, I wanted to put my sentiment on there. So the one that says "We have come for the cake" was actually too long to fit on it, so I had to cut that in half. So I actually wound up stamping it twice and then using the coordinating die to cut it out, and then I just trimmed around the F on the 4 and trimmed around the word "come" on the back side so that I could get that to fit on the slider. As I was putting on the sentiments, I thought, oh my gosh, it would be so cute to have that other little lone alien that's standing up at the bottom of the card asking if we've got milk. So that's where he ended up. I had a little bit of an oopsie on that tab from messing around with it and having to take it off of my slider mechanism. So I just colored a few of the little cookies that come with that set and adhered those just above the "got milk." I guess we could have cake and cookies for a birthday. What do you think? And that pretty much does it for this card. I am so thrilled with the way this turned out. I think it is so fun and so creative. And I can't say enough about how easy that interactive mechanism is. I mean, I've done a lot of interactive cards, and this by far is one of the easiest to assemble. Anyway, this is all I've got for today. Go ahead and hit subscribe if you want to be notified of future videos. You can follow me on Instagram at Sandy Cogdill or on my blog, www.sandicogdilldesigns.com. Thank you so much for stopping by today, and I hope you have a great one. Bye-bye.